Is God still using signs and wonders to reach people with the good news of Jesus Christ? How can we make ourselves available in ordinary ways to see God do extraordinary things? Welcome to World Methodist Evangelism's Real Faith, Real World podcast, where we connect the faith within us with the world around us. At World Evangelism, we desire for Christ followers within the global Wesleyan family to become agents of transformation by sharing the gospel through the power of the Holy Spirit. We accomplish this through training, gathering, and resourcing to fulfill our mission to equip and encourage Christ followers around the world to share their faith in the context of today's realities. My name is Rob Haynes of World Methodist Evangelism. Thank you for listening. Today's episode is part 2 of a conversation with Zaki El-Zaki. He is a pastor in the Chicago area as well as a leader in the Middle Eastern United Methodist Caucus. Today's conversation is about the ways that God can use us in even the most ordinary of circumstances to be a part of something extraordinary. God is speaking to people through signs and wonders today, and in those situations, God often uses Christians to enter in and explain those signs and wonders to others as we help lead them to a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ. If you've not already heard part 1 of our discussion with Zaki, I would encourage you to do so now or after hearing this episode. You will be inspired and encouraged. This podcast is made possible through the generosity of Christ Church Global in Memphis, Tennessee, and we want to thank them for their support. Would you be sure to rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast app? That helps others know about this podcast and its ministry. We'd also love to hear your questions and comments. You can reach us at podcast@worldmethodist.org. I'm so excited that you have the opportunity to hear today's episode, a conversation with my friend Zaki. When he told me this story a couple of years ago, I was struck by the way that God shows up in even the most ordinary of things, something like going out to lunch, and interacts and intersects that with the miraculous. I knew when I first heard it that I wanted to share it far and wide, and I'm so thankful that he shares it with you today, and you have a chance to listen in to what God is doing in places that we may have never imagined, and in ways that can change our lives and someone else's at the same time. You told me a story about even doing something as simple as going out to eat, and God working in some ways about that. Would you tell us that story?
The story that you were referring to, I did not always, as a pastor, go about, wearing my clerical shirt, but I kind of learned that that many times opens all kinds of doors. So I started wearing it, whenever it's appropriate, whenever I'm outside, I would just wear it,
Right.
And one day I walked in, a restaurant somewhere in Chicagoland, and I don't want to mention too many, details or specifics.
Sure, no problem.
Intention. But anyway, I walked into this very small restaurant, and that's a restaurant run by a Chaldean family from Iraq. And the Chaldeans, of course, are very, ancient people. Our father Abraham was from Ur of the Chaldeans.
Right.
So this restaurant is run by Chaldeans, and I kind of walked in, to kind of buy lunch, and the cook came kind of in a very excited way, came running towards me, and he told me, "Are you a Christian?" I said to him, "Yes, I am a Christian." So he kind of looked around to make sure that no one is, listening, at least too closely. Took me to the side and he said to me, "I really want to talk with you." Of course, he saw, the collar,
Right.
the clergy collar that I was wearing. So he kind of surmised that I must be a Christian, must be a priest or something, So he took me to the side and said to me, "I really want to talk with you. I cannot talk right now, but I'll take my break very soon, and I really want to talk with you." So I said to him, "Okay, I'll hang around." And maybe another 10 minutes or so, we went outside, and he said to me, "I need someone to help me understand the dream that I have." So I said to him, "What dream?" He said to me, "I saw your Jesus in a dream. I saw Jesus in a dream." Now I got very, very excited.
Sure.
By any standard, it is it is something very special to see Jesus
Yes.
in a dream. So I said to him, I want you to feel safe, and I'm glad that you're talking with me, and I'm listening, and I really wanna help you. So just share with me what you saw, and we found a way to we found a kind of safe place to continue the conversation. And he shared with me about his dreams. He had several dreams where he would see Jesus in his dreams, and Jesus would identify himself
Wow.
to him. And he told me that he would wake up and feel tremendous peace,
Wow.
peace that cannot be kind of explained.
Right.
This is someone who went through, and I'm sorry to say the word, but he went through hell.
Yes.
Went through very, very, very difficult circumstances with many members of his family, killed and assassinated, and
Wow.
he and his wife and his two very little children had to flee, and of course they're here, living here in Chicagoland as refugees. Very, very difficult circumstances.
Right.
And he works in this restaurant. He's not the chef, but he's one of the cooks there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so very vulnerable experiences, very difficult experiences. And Jesus appears to him and identifies himself as Jesus. And the dream that he wanted to share with me, that he could not understand. He said to me in the dream, Jesus took me, and um, and so he said Jesus went on his knees. So first of all, he led him by the hand, went on his knees, and carried him, and dipped him or immersed him in water,
Wow.
and said to him, you are mine."
Wow.
And this brother told me that when he woke up, he could feel that he was wet. That he literally was wet,
Wow.
because he said in the dream, Jesus, of course, he did not know the word
Right.
baptize, but Jesus baptized him in water
Wow.
completely, um, and then and Jesus was on his knees as he did that.
Wow. What a
He
beautiful
kept
picture.
insisting this. He knew that Muslims have a very high opinion of Jesus.
Yes.
I mean, yes, of course, they believe that Jesus is not crucified, but Jesus for them is the one that's gonna come at the end to judge the living and the dead. So they have a very, very high opinion of this prophet, according to them, that they call Isa or Jesus. So for him to go on his knees, that was very big for my brother. So he repeated it a couple of times.
Wow.
And then after he was completely soaked in water, Jesus took him by the hand. And then he said to me, he took me, and there was a group of people like yourself, he said to me, who were sitting in a circle. And Jesus took him by the hand and seated him next to him at the very center of that circle. And he looked at the people in the circle and said to them, "This is now your brother. You take care of him.
Wow.
He's one of you. You take care of him, or he's your brother. You take care of him." And for an Iraqi, that's a big thing.
Yes.
Because in many of these cultures, when you're asked to take care of someone, that means even at the cost of your own life. I know that for a fact. There's a very high concept of hospitality. Take care of this person, and so on and so
Right.
forth. So I kind of, to be honest with you, with tears in my eyes, and I'm sure I cried a couple of
Oh, I'm
times while I
sure.
was talking
Of course.
with him. But I kind of introduced him to, we began to talk about Jesus and what it means to, that what Jesus actually requires, for us to be in that, in a genuine and authentic and living, life-giving relationship.
Right.
I shared with him how God, in the very beginning, the story of the Garden of Eden, would love, or would walk with Adam and Eve, that level of relationship.
Yes.
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 And how it is very similar to what he told me about Jesus walking with him, holding his hand,
Wow.
walking with him, leading to that group of people who are like myself. This story reminds me that every moment has the potential of being the moment that would bring someone to Christ.
Wow. That's right.
Even someone from a very, very different background or tradition. And of course that is true. Regard every moment has the potential of being, the road to Damascus kind of moment for someone.
Yes.
And we just need to be ready and to be, to find ways to identify ourselves as followers of Christ. It doesn't have to be the clergy collar, because not everyone is a clergy, and
Right.
certainly, but how do we, in other ways, kind of help others to see that we are followers of the way.
Right.
Because if a lot of people are very eager to talk to someone, about an experience they had, or about a challenge that they face, or about a dream that they have seen, or about a question that troubles them, in the context of the diaspora communities. Christ is very active, and many of them will come to you and say, "I had a dream, I had a vision, and I need someone to talk, to kind of have a fuller understanding of what I saw, and what is it." Asking that same question that even Paul asked: "What do you want me to do,
Right.
Lord? Or what do I need to do? What are the next steps?" And this is just one story of many, and they are everywhere, and they are observing and looking.
Right.
And if they sense that you are a person, then that would listen to them, and they will come to you, and they would say, "Sir, can I talk with you? Can you help me understand it?"
I wonder if you could give us, from your experience, a few concrete points that someone could do, some to think about, and some actions that they could do so that they could be this sort of witness in their community. Maybe it is to people who are come from a Muslim background or another religion, who don't necessarily speak the language or have the same contact with the culture like you do. How can people begin to faithfully be a part of the way God wants to minister in communities like this?
Well, thank you. Really, I believe that it takes all of us. So what I have, God can use.
Right.
And part of what I have is, the knowledge of the language. My features are kind of, Middle Eastern kind of features. So,
Okay.
so the part of what I have is maybe, the cultural awareness, language features, and God can use that. Many times people from that part of the world stop me and say, would you please pray for my mother? Would you please
Sure.
pray for, I don't know, for my daughter? Or part of what I bring also is the fact that I am, a clergy person.
Right.
And so I can wear a clergy collar. But believe me, God, but what I have is not important than what someone else has, because God ultimately wants to use everything that God has entrusted to us. So for example, if I can just mention this one point, and then
Please.
I'll go back
Please.
to Chicagoland. When we go to, as I said, we are active as a caucus in 20 plus cities or urban centers. One of them is Athens, the city of Athens. The city of Athens is a very, very important gateway. Many refugees enter Europe through Greece, eventually Athens, and so on and so forth. But we have intentionally been praying that it will be a spiritual gateway through which many will enter the kingdom of God. So we go to Athens, on a very regular basis, and when we started going in 2016, initially we would go 2 or 3 times every year. But at least we'll go once, if not twice. When we go to Athens, we of course realize that that we have to do whatever we do in partnership with the church, there. So one of the churches that we work closely with is a Greek church. That particular church happens to be a Brethren church. It's a Greek church, a Brethren church. The pastor, lay pastor, is the head of the customs at the Athens airport.
Okay.
But he serves as the pastor for this small church. It's a very small church. It's composed of a handful of elderly, primarily women, but perhaps 1 or 2 gentlemen as well. So not more than 10. That's the whole church, and they're all elderly, but they partner with us, and we are actually, more accurately, we partner with them, and what they bring to the equation is extremely important, because we cannot, do it alone. They feel that they also need help. Remember that verse, come over and help.
Right.
So when they're helping us, we're helping them. We do it together. They feel energized. It is so energizing to see, an 80 or 90 plus, dancing for the Lord. Not because it's the thing that they do in their church, but because the Spirit is moving. You know, I don't think on a regular kind of day or Sunday they necessarily, but I don't know. But it's just so energizing.
Right.
To kind of see how the Spirit moves and uses the little that I have, the little that my brother has, the little that my sister has, the little that this small church in Athens has, and eventually, for Christ and His kingdom.
Wow.
It's not about us. It's not about them. It's not about. It's about. It's about. It's the gospel of the kingdom.
Yes.
But evangelism is so important. I often see. One of the things that I immediately observed when I came to this beautiful country, this blessed country, is that many churches have. My mother was for many, many years the organist of our church, ever since she was 12, by the way. An American missionary taught her to play the organ.
Wow.
And he has been playing the organ for our church ever since, of course, maybe until just a few years ago.
Right.
And my mother was also for many years a choir director. So don't misunderstand this comment.
Mm-hmm.
But just as our churches have, music departments and choirs and which is beautiful. I'm very biased for that. But I really pray that our churches would have very intentional evangelistic themes.
Right.
Or people at least to kind of not just an evangelism committee, nothing wrong with that, but teams of people that are engaged and active and because I think this is the heart of who we are. We are a movement. I pray that we'll always be a movement. Well, I pray we'll always be a movement that is ready to go everywhere, not to preach the word. I mean, I'm a preacher, but it's not about preaching the word, but it's about evangelizing.
Wow.
Just sharing. Because when you preach, you have to kind of, there's all kinds of techniques and skills, and of course, evangelism also techniques and skills and so on and so forth. But evangelism is a more a more foundational task.
Yes.
And everyone can say, I was blind and now I can see. Or I was, hey brother, there was a time in which I would have been so biased against you. But the love of Christ has changed my heart. And now I speak to you with tremendous love. I will give my life for you. Evangelism is such a foundational task for the Christian to kind of share the saving grace that has changed us, and to say it's available, it's real, and it's for you.
Well, Brother Zaki, what a wonderful place to wrap up there. I hope that we can have you back on a future episode to hear more about the work and how we can be a part of that and how we can learn from your rich experience to minister in our own context.
And can I just say also that I'm so grateful to you, and so grateful to the work of the work of World Methodist Evangelism.
Well, thank you.
I am honestly very, very thankful to God for your faithfulness and for the work that is entrusted to you.
Did you catch that? Every moment has the potential of being the moment that would bring someone to Christ, even someone from a very different background or tradition. We need to be ready and to find ways to identify ourselves as followers of Christ. What a wonderful reminder and an encouragement that God is already at work before we ever show up into someone else's life in an effort to share the hope that we have found with others. My thanks again to Zaki El-Zaki. You can find the links to the things we discussed today in today's show notes. You can find out how to email Zaki if you are interested in learning more about the Middle Eastern Caucus or ask him more about his ministry there in Roselle. Also, if you're interested in ministry to immigrant communities, may I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 11 of our podcast when we talked to Zach Samara, who is with Immigrant Connection. He does some great work with local churches on how they can serve immigrant communities in their reach. Thanks again to Christ Church Global for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to rate and subscribe and let us hear from you at podcast@worldmethodist.org with your questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes. Also in today's show notes, you'll find the links to the social media connections for World Methodist Evangelism. You can reach me at Dr. Rob Haynes on social media. That's DrRobHaynes. I'm Rob Haynes, and you've been listening to WME's Real Faith, Real World podcast.